to paying our share, and then for those other folks, they can pay their own way.
Absolutely. Yep, I agree.
Right, Jerry?
Call the meeting of the Diversion Board of Authority to order. Start out with the roll.
Mr. Vano.
Here.
Mr. Pollock. Mr. Thorsted.
Here.
Mr. Olson. Here. Mr. Williams.
Here.
Dr. Mahoney.
Here.
Ms. Sobolik.
Here.
Mr. Campbell.
Here.
Ms. Otto. Here.
Okay. First item, as you heard, we just want to welcome Melissa to the Diversion Authority Board.
Thank you.
Do we usually have them sing their school fights on?
Yes, we do. Whenever we call it, we do.
What is the Courtney fight song?
It was On Wisconsin. That was our song. I'm sure I could belt it out if you wanted. You may not ever come back to the meeting, but
But welcome, Melissa.
thank you.
The minutes from previous meeting.
Move to approve.
Motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Order of agenda. Any changes, additions? I am going to, it's not a big item, I'm just going to address an article in the paper today on the Ducks Unlimited. But with that,
And move approval with that. You're going to add that in public outreach?
I could do that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'll do it there. So we had a motion with that and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, management report.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. My name's John Glutzmeyer. I'm filling in for Bruce Spiller today, giving the technical report for the program management consultant. So I want to quickly go over the June and July highlights, the ongoing work that's being done for the bridge design reaches. We are continuing to address review comments on the County Road 20 bridge. That was a 95% submittal that was completed a little bit ago, and we're closing out comments on that. The Oxbow-Hickson-Baki levy work package 43A, last month in June, we received the State Water Commission permit for the project on June 19th. We received the Corps of Engineers 404 permit on June 20th, and mobilization by the contractors onto the site started on June 20th. Construction for the levy work package 43A actually started on June 23rd. Other activities there, 65% design of work package 43B, that's the Corps' portion of the levy, was completed, and they're continuing to work on that to a 95% design, and we are reviewing their design submittals. 43C is another levy design package. They're at 35, working to 65%. And another major component of the system, the pump station, that has been designed to 35%. That design has been reviewed, and they are advancing to their 65% design submittal. Continuing in-town levies, work package 42, design work on the 4th Street pump station and 2nd Street flood wall package. That 95% review started and is ongoing. There is also a new component to the in-town levies, or not new, but slightly advanced or bigger component. The El Zagel project was submitted for 65% review and is under review now. Continuing with coordination on the City Hall project is integral to the 2nd Street North Pump Station project, and that submittal for 95% is due later this month. The Corps Reach 5 channel design, they completed a 65% submittal, and we reviewed it in June. And their Lower Rush Inlet design team, is kind of a sub-component of Reach 5. They are starting up again in the near future to pick their 65% design package up and advance it to the 95% design submittal level. And also another core project, the Wild Rice Dam Fish Passage Mitigation Project. The Corps has completed, and we reviewed their 65% submittal. Other highlights, other activities, Word of Bill passed and was signed June 10th. The Minnesota EIS work, we continue to support and provide information to the DNR to advance that project. There is continued work on land acquisition activities, and we have a cemetery assessment team, and Terry may talk about this a little bit more with her report, but the Corps completed a report on June 30th and posted that. That team is continuing to look at mitigation options for cemeteries that are impacted by the project. Under cultural work, our subcontractor URS completed a cultural resources survey and submitted their report for the Wild Rice Dam mitigation project. And also in June, they completed their field work for indirect impacts due to the in-town levies project. That report is being drafted and has not been submitted yet, but it's being worked on. So moving on to to priority areas for the rest of July and August. There's the public-private partnership agreement effort that, again, Terry could probably speak to that a little bit more, but that work is ongoing, and I believe there's a coordination meeting at the end of July in St. Paul. The Minnesota EIS, the social economic analysis component of the Minnesota EIS is work that one of our subcontractors is doing, and is very important to their EIS, and we are hoping to have a draft of that in the next month or so, towards the end of August. In town, Oxbow, Hickson-Bocke, Work Package 43 priority areas are to continue the design work on the levees and pump station, continue land acquisition for the project. Under the 43A construction package, a key priority area is the Milestone 1 area. That is due to be substantially complete July 21st, so 30 days from notice to proceed. So the contractor is focusing on that area initially. Also, there are two Cass County Joint Water Board contracts that we plan to advertise for bid in July in the Oxbow Ring Levee project. One is a pump station consolidation project, and the other is the demolition of 333 Schnell Drive. In-town levy priorities, there are two bid packages for work to start in 2014. Those are the 4th Street Lift Station and 2nd Street Flood Wall package, 42A1A3, and the 2nd Street North Lift Station and Gatewell package, which is for 43A2. So those designs are ongoing, and we are scheduled to complete those and bid them in August. continued coordination with the City Hall project, utility relocations, and land acquisition are other priority areas. And then later in July, there's a lot of activity in St. Paul, an agency meeting on July 23rd, and the much advertised Maple River Aqueduct site visit on July 24th. And then I have a few pictures here of construction activities down in Oxbow I'd like to share with you, just to let you see what's going on. The mobilization started June 20, so this is a picture of scraper equipment parked on County Road Highway 25. This is an aerial photograph of the project. I penciled in an outline of the levee. The construction activity now is occurring on south of Oxbow in the field, and on the east side of that you can see where the earth is scoured. That's where topsoil has been removed, and there are two contractors in the field, one for the levee project, our project, which is focused on the east side of the project, and then also the development contractor is out there, and they're more or less working in the center area there. Here's another photograph a little bit closer up and generally looking in a southerly direction. The highlighted or circled area is the milestone area 1 area that is due to be completed July 21st. So that includes the levee section along the perimeter and mass grading within that area before it gets turned over. Just to give you an idea of what some of the work being done for the levee, this is an inspection trench where they excavate down at the center line of the levee 6 feet and expose the soil to inspect to see if there are any irregularities or bad soil that need to be removed. And after it's inspected, they put the dirt back in and compact it to design standards and then build the levee on top of it. This is a different section that's a little bit more advanced, and you can see they've backfilled and compacted the inspection trench and are now starting to construct the prism of the levee. The levee construction occurs in approximately 1 foot lifts where the contractor will bring in clay and compact it in approximately 1 foot elevations. Then that is tested, and then they put another layer on top of that. So it's sort of built in layers. And I think that's the last slide I have there.
Any comments or questions? I guess,
On your,
go ahead.
question,
Go ahead.
in your social economic study, what are we going to gain out of that? What additional information does that bring? I know at one time we had a ratio, how well we did, or a ratio. Is that going to influence that, or what is the social economic supposed to help us in this project?
The DNR is looking at the proposed project, our project, and they're also comparing it to several alternatives. The social economic analysis generally would take a look at our project and those alternatives and compare them not only from an environmental standpoint, but the social economic study compares them on a social and economic level. And it's just another criteria that their analysis requires.
And I know on the federal project we had deaths or effects it may have on the population. Is this only social economic, or does it take that in as well? We had a death risk of flood with the federal project. Do we have this with the Minnesota one? Bob, would you know that?
Yeah. The modeling that's being done in our process is slightly different. The model platform is different. before. And one of the benefits is it does allow regional benefits to be included. The core analysis doesn't allow that to happen. So the two really aren't apples to apples and really aren't intended to be apples to apples, but it will satisfy the requirement in state statute for the EIS.
Well, my curiosity is that the Office of Budget, in Washington, one of the issues was our social economic benefits, and I know when we did it with federal, we couldn't bring in much more regional or stuff in here. If some of the Minnesota project is helpful to us, is that available then for us to utilize when we're talking to congressional delegations?
It'll certainly be available.
Okay.
There was reference to the flood wall downtown Fargo, and I just want to comment. I think it was yesterday there was an article in the paper, and I certainly want to commend staff in Fargo and the commission, I guess, for moving forward with that project. It looks very nice, the article, in terms of how it's going to look, and I think we all understand that all of that activity goes hand in glove with what we're doing with the diversion in terms of ensuring that we have complete protection. So I think that was nice to see that progress is being made there. Also, you alluded to and of course the Corps could address this, but the cemetery report being completed. It's been released, right? And my question might be to Darren, is that going to be on the website? It is now. It is. Okay, good. So, and then of course you have continued work in more detail there. Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Terry, you're going to...
Good afternoon. Usual monthly update topics. Physical modeling continues. Oxbow Hicks and Bakke levee design continues on both the sponsors and the Corps of Engineers part. Design on the Wild Rice Dam Fish Passage structure removal continues. An environmental assessment will be released to outline that removal of the dam is going to be undertaken versus adding rock to promote fish passage at that existing structure. We're assisting with in-town levee design by offering design assistance and also reviewing products. We continue the design of Reach 5. We're approaching a 95% submittal in the next couple months. Talk about the cemetery study some more, and then we continue to work with the DNR on their EIS process. More advertisement for the Maple River Aqueduct. The site visit's upcoming on the 24th. Everybody's invited, including the public. Just have to get yourself down to Rosemount, Minnesota. The flyer, each of you should have a flyer in front of you. Looks like this. And we can hand one out to the public, too, if anybody's interested in coming down. Cemetery
by road
study.
how far is that by car?
From here, you
Yeah.
could probably get there in 3 hours, 45 minutes.
If Zavral's driving?
That's me driving. Other people, it might take 4 hours and 20 minutes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Cemetery study, this is kind of a rehash of the information that was presented a month ago. There are 7 sites located within the staging area that are impacted, and those are listed. The additional depth impacts range from 0.3 of a foot to 8.3 feet. We have 4 sites that are upstream of the staging area that are impacted, and those are listed. South Pleasant Church, Wolverton, and Eagle Valley. And those additional depth impacts range from 1/10 to 1/2 a foot. The cemetery study was published on fmdiversion.com on June 30th. It's available to the public. We also sent letters to impacted sites and non-impacted sites. So the letters to impacted sites, we sent them to the 7 that are in the staging area and the 4 outside the staging area that have impacts. But we also sent letters to upstream sites that are not impacted by the project to let them know that this study is available. We do not impact them, and they can go to the study and read it. The letters we sent to impacted sites also included a hard copy of the cemetery study, and with maps and photos and all of that, it's about this thick. Our next steps, we're planning additional site visits. We're probably going to visit the impacted sites more than once. Our first set of visits, we're looking at going out on July 21st, and we're going to notify the POCs for each of the sites that we intend on visiting. But this is not something that's going to happen in a month. It's going to take us maybe a year to get this mitigation plan ready, and it's going to take multiple visits and probably multiple interfaces with the site POCs to develop this mitigation plan. So what you see here is just a copy of a letter. We've redacted the names for privacy reasons on the website, and just the cemetery study cover. Path forward, continue to support the EIS process and develop and review design products. That's it for my briefing.
Questions for Terry? If not, thank you, Terry. Next, update from Eric.
Mr. Chairman, of course, it's already been mentioned and everyone knows, but from a legal standpoint, since the last meeting, the Word of Bill has become law. This project is now federal law in effect, and so one significant legal aspect of that is that the project as described for the bill can't be really substantially changed without further environmental work and or perhaps another act of Congress. So that's one legal point. The other thing that's happened since the last meeting, of course, is there's been a second lawsuit filed on this. Just to provide a little bit of overview of that litigation. As you know, last fall in August, the Richland-Wilkin Joint Powers Association filed a lawsuit against the Army Corps of Engineers in federal district court, and didn't name the Diversion Authority. And the arguments centered around the environmental review process and other counts. Where that lawsuit currently stands, of course, it has two counts. One is sort of arguing that the decisions were made in error that resulted in this project, and then also a second count that relates to the approval, the follow-up approval, the amendment of the project with the four options, one of which, of course, includes the Oxbow-Hixon-Baki levee. That lawsuit, of course, is still pending. The lawsuit that was filed and served since the last meeting was a lawsuit filed in Wilkin County in state court by the Richland-Wilkin JPA. They didn't name the Corps in that one. They named the Diversion Authority. In essence, makes the same arguments as the federal court case. There certainly are some distinctions, but in large part it's talking about the same subject matter, obviously. And what has happened since that lawsuit was initiated toward the end of June, is that a motion has been filed in the federal court asking the federal court to make a determination as to whether this lawsuit should remain just in that federal case. The case started in federal court, and the question that we're asking the federal judge is, should this case just lie in one location in federal court, and does federal court retain sort of jurisdiction over the case? And so that issue is being briefed right now, and we'll go on to hearing in front of the federal judge. And there'll be steps that follow depending upon the outcome of that decision by the judge. So that's the status, if that helps.
Commissioner Pollack?
Do we have a timeline on when we expect
to hear on the second lawsuit?
Yeah, so the second lawsuit is sort of sitting there in Wilkin County District Court, but the motion is filed in federal court. I believe the hearing is scheduled for July 23rd on the motion that's before the federal judge, where we're asking the judge to decide whether all of this should stay in federal court.
Is it reasonable to expect that that issue will be decided on that day? Or will it?
It's frankly not that often that judges will rule from the bench on matters of substance. They typically take things under advisement and issue a written opinion sometime later.
And which federal judge sits in on this one?
Yeah, well, the judge, the federal district court judge who was originally assigned to the case was Judge Kyle. When this Wilkin County lawsuit was filed and we filed our moving papers, Judge Kyle recused himself, and Judge Thunheim has been assigned to the case. Now, just to make sure I get to your question, when we had the hearing on the motion to dismiss in April 3rd, that was in front of the magistrate for the judge. There's the district court judge, and then magistrates handle sort of certain types of things sort of upon request of the district judge. That was Judge Brisbois. So, but the judge who has this case is now Judge Thunheim.
I was just trying to remember my question. Thank you.
Well, then I succeeded in answering it, right? Okay,
Any other questions for Eric?
okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got some work directives.
So this month, there's 3 work directives we're recommending for approval here at the board. They are for work on the project on hydrology modeling, cemetery berm concept designs, and construction services. First one is AWD 38. This is for additional assistance for the Hickson hydrology update, providing support and assistance to the Corps to complete the Hickson hydrology a balanced hydrograph effort. That's for $20,000, and that's our interim budget for that. The second one is AWD 39. This is a Corps request to develop conceptual ring berm designs for 11 impacted cemeteries, and these conceptual berm designs are one possible mitigation strategy. It certainly has been mentioned in the report and elsewhere. This developing this concept at least gives us an understanding of what's possible and what it might cost, and help figure out if it's a mitigation strategy that can be implemented. That support request is for $10,000, and then also under this AWD, there are 6 rural water wells in the staging area that potentially could require mitigation, and so a survey of those wells is needed to advance that effort. That budget is $2,000, so a total of an interim budget of $12,000 for AWD 39. And the final AWD 40, is for in-town levies, services during construction. This is a request to provide engineering services from Houston Moore Group during the bidding phase of the 2 construction packages that will be going out to bid next month for 2014 construction.
pretty straightforward. Anyone have any questions on any of those three? Ken?
You know, I'm just wondering about the AWD 40, provide engineering services during the bidding phase of the 2014 in-town levies construction projects. I just don't ever recall seeing a request for engineering services for the bid process, for the bid portion of the project, you know, separate from the engineering services for the project. Well, explain that if you would, please.
What's been contracted and done so far is task orders to provide design services. So they've been contracted to develop the designs for not only in-town levies, but the other projects as well, the bridges and Oxbow ring levy. Those contracts specifically scoped design work from concept to 100% design. After that, you basically have contract documents that you put out for bid, and during the bidding phase, contractors ask questions. Sometimes there has to be an addendum to the bid documents. If there's an engineering change, you need the engineer that stamped it to do that work. These are services that are not included in the scope of the design tasks, and so this is work that basically follows design and takes them into the bidding and then construction services that the engineer would perform.
So generally, a project, when you have an engineering, the goal of that engineering is to bring the project to bidding. But that doesn't seem to be that was the case, that this is the case here. It was the goal of the project was to design the project, but not necessarily to bring it to bid, and that's why the additional dollars are requested.
Generally, yes. I think all we're talking about is where one contract service scopes ends and where one begins. I think other contracts are written that include the bidding services, and sometimes there's a kind of a design bid package that includes it, and then a second one for engineering services during construction. These design contracts that are scoped for Houston Moore Group are for design services only, so they did not include these services.
Who designed the scope?
The scope is developed by C.H. Hill.
By who? Oh, CH2. All right, thank you.
All right.
Anyone else?
Aren't we a little different to Ken Pollock's question? In some ways, we weren't necessarily sure we had the money or the authorization. In some ways, we're being a little bit careful about what we're spending. Isn't that part of what drives this? Because we're talking about the pumps now, April. That's what's going on, and these are considerably expensive. Where we go next, right? He's bidding.
Well, I think you're right that when we wrote the scope for design, we weren't prepared to commit to the bid package yet, which is why the engineer was not asked to supply a price for that process. So we're just moving ahead.
Yeah.
Well, if it were part of the original project, would it be a $20,000 ad to take the project to bid? Would that $20,000 be in the project?
Here's what I'd say. We're not double counting anything, and we're only going to spend what we use. So we're authorizing up to the $20,000, but it'll be for services that are actually provided.
All right, thank you.
I'll leave it up to the board here if you want to handle all three in one motion or individually.
Move to approve items 7A, all three, unless, Ken, you want that one separate? Okay.
Okay. Motion and a second. Any further comments? If not, we'll take the roll.
Mr. Vanyo?
Yes.
Mr. Pollock?
Yes.
Mr. Thorstad?
Yes.
Mr. Olson?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Dr. Mahoney?
Aye.
Ms. Sobolik?
Aye.
Mr. Campbell?
Aye.
Ms. Otto?
Yes.
Thank you. Number 8, public outreach. Roger.
Before I start, when we get to the end here, online and media presence, I'll call on Darren Selvig to give that. And then after that, I would like like the mic back again, and I've got something else to announce here, so.
Okay.
All right. Coordination with the Corps. Coordination with the Corps continues on a daily basis through emails and scheduled calls. As the board just received the update on outreach for the cemeteries, we look to address each site individually, so mitigation and efforts are done in conjunction with representatives from the cemeteries themselves. And the Corps will be, as you saw earlier, the Corps will be hosting an opportunity to visit the Maple River Aqueduct model on the 24th, and that'll be in Rosemont. It's open to diversion members, staff, and the general public. Federal update. The outreach team continues to coordinate its activities, updates, and communications with work being done in Washington with both states, federal, and congressional offices regarding the recent authorization received by the WRDA bill and as appropriations are being sought for our project. State coordination. North Dakota Topics Overview Committee. Representatives of the Diversion Authority attended the North Dakota Water Topics Overview Committee this past month. Part of the meeting was a joint affair which included Governor, State Water Commission. Darrell Vanyo gave testimony to the committee. Extra copies of that testimony is available and can be found online at fmdiversion.com. Under the Business Leaders Flood Task Force, as a member of the Outreach Committee, Craig Whitney from the Chamber worked closely with the Diversion Authority to provide an update on the project to the task force at its regular scheduled meeting yesterday. Community outreach. The diversion outreach efforts included a number of presentations to groups over the past month. The North Dakota Consensus Council, the American Society of Farm Managers and Rural Appraisers, and the Fargo Kiwanis. And again, we look for any opportunity to continue that outreach to groups. At this time, I'll call on Darren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and board members. What we'll have in our e-newsletter that's going to be distributed next week, among the topics we'll cover is we will look at the landscaping and materials for Fargo's 2nd Street Flood Protection Project and provide a link to the city's website where that information is really well summarized there. So we'll let our readers know about that. We'll talk about how Farm Bill tools can help address the upstream concerns. We will have a report on the business task force that has met and summarize the funding update provided by Chairman Vanyo to the North Dakota Water Topics Overview Committee. That e-newsletter will go out again next week, and we'll have those stories on the website as well.
Thanks, Darren. Now let's talk about the Farm Bill. In the Farm Bill, Congress included some money for conservation areas, critical conservation areas, and also other areas within the United States that look for ways to practice conservation and also to retain water. And last week, Ag Secretary Vilsack came to town, came to Fargo, and he had some very important news for us. What Secretary Vilsack announced was that the Red River Valley has been called a critical conservation area. And what that does is opens up funding for conservation practices within the Red River Valley. And those practices they can be many, but one of those is water retention, or ways to slow water down. And he just didn't announce this. He came with money in his pockets. He came with $20 million a year that is available through programs with NRCS. And then, to top it all, he came with an additional $50 million just for the Red River Valley. This is $50 million that is available through the NRCS programs, which will not be competed against by other parts of the country. It is designated for this part, the Red River Valley, the Red River watershed. So it's a very important funding mechanism as we go forward to look for water retention in our watershed districts. Really exciting news. He says, it's only successful if you spend the money. So he's very upbeat, and he's willing to make it work when we bring projects forward. So one place that we're really going to push to get these funds spent is the Red River Retention Authority. And Pat Downs, and manager of the Diversion Authority, and Keith Weston from the NRCS have worked diligently over the last 2.5 to 3 years, hoping for these funds to become available. And now they will continue to work within the rules of these programs to get projects on the ground and look for support from each and every watershed district, along with each and every landowner out there, to look for water retention projects and an opportunity that how should I say it, has really never been here before. So, thank you.
Well, Roger, obviously that's good news, and you're right. Obviously, we've got to be positioned here to make use of those funds, and so as the water district, water boards, continue to work on that, I hope that this is something that can be as fast track as possible, and of course that coupled with our monies, can certainly help. Tim?
Just a question on that, then if somebody had a project they wanted to do, would they go to the water board first, and then the funding mechanism is through who?
Well, you could come to the water board, and then we could direct to Red River Retention Authority, NRCS. But I think the place to start probably is Red River Retention Authority, and they can help them through the process.
So you have 50 million?
50 million specified for the Red River Valley over 5 years. So we need to spend these funds or they'll go away. And we could spend it all in 1 year if we got projects.
So you and your farm, could you do something in your farm there, or no?
We could, yes.
Could be a small project or a big project, is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct. And yes, individual farm owners, landowners can, that's where it starts. Okay. The NRCS wants to work with the individual farmers, and that's where the funds come through, the Natural Resource Office.
Ken?
And as a diversion authority, why does that matter to us?
Well, I think it's important. I think it's very important as members of, or as people who live in the Red River Valley, as we all do. It's important to be able to help control the water. It's important because we've put $25 million forward to support retention, and this would just be a place to piggyback those $25 million and really multiply our dollars here. So I think it's very important.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, in follow-up to that, I think a good answer to your question is, I would hope it can reduce the impacts that this project is creating. I would hope that it can really help to reduce the impacts that this project is creating. I think that's, people lose track of the fact that we're always trying to do that. And this is an excellent source that can help do that.
And it appears that it can help leverage the dollars that we put forward as well.
Mike?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this is a long-sought goal, so it is good news, and it isn't enough, but it's a good start. So, the 20% flow reduction that the Red Board has been working on and the joint powers agreements between the states and the counties, it's beautiful. So the projects that are waiting, like Red Path, they can get going, and we will have, it adds value to everything that we're doing. So it's a good news. It isn't enough, but it's a good start.
And just one more thing, Upper Maple River Dam, we're actually going to get a visit the first part of August from the state NRCS director, Mary Podel, and she will visit and look at the site and look if there's ways that we can capture some funds as we go forward in this project. So that's a real world possibility along with Red Path in Minnesota.
But I think one of the differences we have with this is we actually have money. I mean, Ken, to your question, in the other areas, we're looking for money, and we're authorized now, but we're looking for money. This is a great opportunity because the money's sitting there right now. So if somebody wanted a retention project, they could do it if it follows the criteria of water boards. But, I mean, that's good that the government is actually stepping up and has funds available to do that. So.
And just to correct your statement, it's the rules of the NRCS, not the watershed or the water. So it's actually a federal program, and we need to follow those rules.
Thank you, Roger. Business Leaders Task Force update. Tom isn't here, but Roger alluded to this. I just want to point out that the presentations, not only to Business Task Force members, but it was really the Minnesota side in terms of elected officials. So we had Clay County, Moorhead Consul, and legislators in District 4 in attendance. So just so that you understand that, and a number of business leaders who commented on, why we have the continued need for the project. I think Nancy and a few others here might have been there as well. Land management. Oh, yep, you're right. Thanks. Keep me on task. We had an agenda item. I just wanted to address this. It was the article in the paper today on the wetlands, and let me just kind of give you some background. We addressed this in the Finance Committee, which prompted the article, and I have no problem with the article. It may sound like there was, way more than maybe, frustration or something. I think we were kind of jokingly referring to these things. They're necessary. So the 404 permit requires mitigation of wetlands, and we understand that. And these can be different ways to provide the wetlands, one of which is through using the services of Ducks Unlimited. And the Corps of Engineer had required that we work with Ducks Unlimited for the necessary wetlands. And certainly when things like this come in, they're always higher than what one would expect. It's no different. Quite frankly, I likened it to, it's a requirement to have the Minnesota DNR doing their work, and they came back for additional funds. We may not have liked the number that they had, but it's a necessary thing. And so we requested a Ducks Unlimited to, provide us a cost on this. When they did, we'd all like it to be cheaper, but we approved at the Finance Committee, and, I just don't want anybody to believe that, we were all up in arms about something and, that there's some confrontation with Ducks Unlimited. There isn't. We're accepting that as a part of the project, and so be it. So that's my comment on it.
I got a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
So our options were Ducks Unlimited. If there would have been a mitigation bank in North Dakota or Minnesota, is it possible that we could have bought those credits off-site and not spend the money here? Is that a federal possibility? Okay. And then certainly Ducks Unlimited isn't the only people doing this mitigation or these restorations. I'm just wondering where.
I guess the other question we had too is the state has some money that it's putting into conservation. Is there any availability of that funding for that as well? I don't know if the engineers have that or don't, or the feds have that or not. We seem to, as a state, money put into some of these areas. Is there any way we can do what you're talking, trade up and trade it to some other area?
Well, I guess what I'm looking forward, because this project will impact wetlands through the whole project.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering if this is our only option, or do we need to start looking for all of our options so that we are able to make a choice and not just have one choice? Or I think we need to do that, and probably there's people already thinking that.
Terry?
Yeah, for the rest of the project, for the diversion project, the wetland mitigation occurs within the channel. So we don't anticipate having to do any additional wetland mitigation like what was done for Oxbow for the rest of the project.
Ken?
Thank you.
Well, along that vein, because this project is a wetlands generator, you know, there's more wetlands when we're done than when we started. I was wondering why we couldn't get apply the credit towards what we would be generating in the future.
So mitigation has to occur prior to or concurrent with construction. So if Oxbow wetland mitigation is greater than what is needed for Oxbow, it can be credited towards the rest of the project. That's what we anticipate. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the mitigation has to happen before the loss.
Yeah, before or concurrent with the loss, right?
And that mitigation, well, at the airport, we did mitigation and bought some swampland and developed some swampland down in Sargent County. And that was the offsetting mitigation for the loss of 2 acres of wetland.
Anything else? Go ahead, Brett.
Yeah, I guess I just want to make one other clarification. With the Ducks Unlimited, it was an option. I mean, it wasn't a requirement of the Corps. Again, we needed a mitigation package that was complete, and it was a choice that met the goals for the thing. So again, it wasn't a requirement of the Corps to do that. It was just an option that was on the table. Like we talked about before, there's a lot of other options. It was just the best vehicle at the time that was chosen by the sponsors to do that.
So the misunderstanding in the paper is it sounded like the Corps demanded to be
It
you.
did
It's
come
really
across
that
in
they
the
just met the
paper.
requirements and they had
It was a
what they had.
requirement by court, and it was not. It was, we needed a complete mitigation package. It fulfilled that commitment and was what, at the time, the sponsors thought was the best avenue to get to their goals.
When you look at per acre costs of mitigating wetlands, I mean, is $34,000 an acre, is there anything to compare to that? I mean, is that reasonable, or is that?
Roger, just one thing I failed to mention, the price is not just in the land, it's in the service that's provided besides the land.
Okay.
So, I mean, so it isn't fair just to take a dollar amount and say, well, that's for the purchase of land. There's other things that go with it. They have to establish the wetland, monitor it, and maintain, you know, and all of that.
And is that for lifetime of the project? Basically, is that part of what they bid on? Is that?
Well, it's my understanding with that agreement with Ducks Unlimited, it would mitigate those acres that you needed.
Yeah.
I mean, so you're exchanging money for those credits, and they will do what they need to do to make that right. That fulfills it. And Roger, to answer your question about cost, I mean, I know NRCS does some wetland reserve restoration projects and stuff. NRCS may have some comparable cost or something to compare with. It does seem like it's a little more money than standard per acre. I mean, to develop those things.
I think, in part of curiosity, what the farmer actually gets, he doesn't get the $33,000, does he? So the land value is much lower than, I mean, because the mitigation is part of development maintenance, correct?
That's part of the package. you know, the mitigation and then also the continued supporting that wetland until it's viable, I imagine. It's part of the, all part of it.
Okay. Includes that. Land management. We had an update on property and farmland management. I think it was reported there that we have 6 of the lots in Hayden Heights sold, 2 pending, I think out of a total of 21 or 22 lots. We talked a little bit about forwarding this process with the Ag Policy Committee in terms of getting something a little more concrete before the end of the year with regard to easement, insurance, kind of what we're going to be doing with the ag producers. And to that end, the Finance Committee heard a presentation by Eric with regard to developing an RFQ to send out for firms that would be interested in providing their qualifications for doing this type of work. This goes beyond what we did previously. As you recall with Watts, they simply came out with their white paper on the different alternatives and concepts. This now takes it forward. And so the Finance Committee approved moving forward with the RFQ. When that information comes back and we have the cost, then you'll get an opportunity to hear about the responses we got and what it might cost to further that.
Okay, for what though?
For getting to the point of, are we going to be dealing with solely easements and insurance? Does one lower the other type of thing? And I also want to point out that since we're years away from invoking something like this, it's very difficult to come up with a number that you can take to a landowner and say, would you be happy with this as a, so we can't deal with finite numbers, but we can deal with getting an appraisal done. I think, Roger, actually, maybe I'm going to ask you, because you made a good comment in the Land Management Committee meeting with the process that you would use in terms of getting this moving with that consultant firm.
Yeah, and here's the problem. We as a diversion, as authority, we feel that the flow easement price should come down if we furnish or take the risk of a crop loss away from that flow easement. So we feel that. We asked the Corps to analyze that and come back with an answer, and they have asked us to help verify that. And so what we're going to do is do an appraisal before and after. Or we're going to ask the company to do an appraisal of the land, flow easement, that value, and then if that crop insurance, if that risk of a crop failure is gone, because we've added insurance, is that flow easement value decreased. So we're looking at what that insurance would do to the flow easement. It's important, I think, to know that. So that's what that's
right.
That's the directive that we would do in this RFQ.
And part of the process is we have to get some landowner to be working with.
Yeah, in order to do this, we need cooperation from the staging area. Of course, for land to appraise. The appraiser would have to have a piece of land that he could appraise. And we would look for land in the deepest part, something in the middle, and something on the edge. So we definitely need cooperation from landowners within the staging area. And we will be asking for that as we go forward in this process of trying to justify and try to come up with a protection plan for the farmers.
I might just give you the timeline here. The process then of developing an RFQ is going to take place, and within a few weeks, they'll have that run by the admin advisory team, and then Roger and myself, and also at the Ag Policy Subcommittee. So that's kind of the July type of thing. And then obviously we'll get an opportunity to get more detail in terms of costs so that we would then give the okay to move ahead at such time. And then there would be attorney involvement in drafting, the agreement there. And then this would carry through to about mid-November. It was our hope that we would have study results back to give us some idea of where we're headed. And our goal, obviously, is to try and get this accomplished before the year end, anticipating the legislative session starting, so we have something a little more concrete. So just a report on that. You'll get more and an opportunity to approve this in the future. Mark?
Mr. Chairman, members of the authority, did they get, in front of you should be a land management summary, as you've seen before. There's some bullet points on the front. Appraisals are continuing in Oxbow, Hickson-Bocke, or in Oxbow for the levee project. We had a meeting with Core Appraisal and right-of-way or real estate people on the appraisal review process, and I thought that was real helpful. That happened since your last authority meeting, so we understood some of the issues. We got our first residential appraisal through the review process, so negotiations will begin in Oxbow to get that moving. We shared the frustration of Oxbow homeowners who've been patiently waiting for this process to get going so they can make their plans on home building or moving or whatever their next steps are. But the good news is that we're finally getting to the point where the appraisals are getting through the review process, and we will begin negotiations. In-town levies appraisals continuing, and the review process is starting on that. We've added some properties for appraisals up in the Elzegel part of the project in town, and we'll have a task order in the next month to start appraisals and acquisitions of the first reaches of the channel work. So that will happen probably this fall and this winter, that appraisal and land acquisition process. So if there's no questions, that's my report for today.
Ken?
One question here. I see the lands budget in fiscal year 2013 was $28 million. The expenses was $1,628,000, and under remaining budget it says not applicable. It would.
I think that's fiscal year 13 that was last year. So fiscal year 14 is the year we're in now. There's $19 million remaining in the budget because we haven't done any acquisitions in Oxbow that was kind of included in the project. We have some farmland acquisitions that is part of what's been expended, but.
Okay, the $26 million just was carried over. From 13 was carried over into 2014.
I don't know how the reporting of it's handled, but it wasn't used in 13.
Got it.
Mark, just one question on the Elzega project. We had some residents come forth, so now all the people in the Elzega project know which homes are affected? Any homeowner who's going to be affected knows that now?
I'll look to Eric. I think notices went out. There was some meetings with the real estate people with some landowners. Have all of them been notified? Or?
Well, the city, prior to that becoming a part of the diversion project, the city had met with those homeowners and identified them as buyouts. At that meeting, it was right around the time that we were meeting with them was the same time that we learned that it was going to be incorporated into the diversion. So they were informed that instead of being acquired under our policy of 110% of assessed, they would be receiving an appraisal and relocation benefits as per federal guidelines. So they all know. They may not have yet received a letter from the relocation specialist, and we're still working like Mark indicated, they've assigned staff now, but it doesn't mean that that staff has had the opportunity to get a letter out and communicate with those residents. Eric,
Just, I know as the city commissioners have received some communications from those people, and we're just wondering if that's been taken care of. Thank you.
I can give a quick update on that as well. In the past day, the certified notice of intent to acquire letters did go out to those residents, and yesterday the relocation specialist met with 4 of the 6 property owners, and he was hoping to meet with the other 2 today. So things are ramping into gear real quick.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Moving on, finance, Mike?
Good afternoon. First of all, Ken, in answer to your question, the 13 budget ended, 14 budget started, and we don't carry those over. We have spent, as Mark reported, about $19 million, and we have about $17 million left in land acquisitions for this budget, which runs through September 30. So, kind of our report for this month. To date, on the diversion project, we've spent $52 million. We have a $70 million budget for this fiscal year, which ends, like I said, September 30th. We've spent or obligated $39 million of that and have $31 million left, most of that in land acquisition. So, some of the things we discussed yesterday, as Darrell mentioned, we did approve an RFQ for kind of looking at crop insurance versus flowage easements, as we mentioned, to see what works best. Kind of a financing update. We're still working on a temporary financing loan through U.S. Bank. We have a conference call tomorrow, I believe, with our attorneys and U.S. Bank, and hopefully we can get some of those things worked out tomorrow. On going forward with information meetings on special assessments, we talked with the joint board yesterday a little bit, or Mark presented from the joint board, the question of what dollar figure do we use when we go out and do the public presentations. We've always kind of thought of $450 million as the local share, being that's what we would talk with other governmental agencies and homeowners about originally, and we had a discussion yesterday, and we kind of upped that to the $900 million, which is the total local and state share, as a starting point, because it's easier to go down than up, and we think that's a good starting point for having those discussions, so that they have the maximum dollar amount out there instead of where we hope we'll end up eventually. So we made a motion to that effect, and I think that's what they're going to use when they go out to city in West Fargo or Horace or other jurisdictions in the next couple of months. We did approve land acquisition directive, as mentioned, in the Alzagle area. There's 4 parcels up there that are being added. I think they're all either Fargo Park or Park District owned. And some of them may be easement type situations and not actual permits. As Darrell reported, we approved the payment of the 404 permit mitigation to Ducks Unlimited, approximately $587,000, and I understand that check will be going out to them next week. So Any other, anything else we need?
Any questions for Mike? If not, we'll move down to voucher approval. You have that before you. Total of $93,955.50.
Move to approve.
A motion and a second. No, we don't have a second. Who's second? Anyone want a second? Ken. Further comments or questions? Take the roll.
Mr. Vaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Pollock?
Yes.
Mr. Thorstad? Yes. Mr. Olson?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Dr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Ms. Sobolik?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Ms. Otto?
Yes.
Any other business? Not, next meeting is August 14th. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn?
Second.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
So hard for me.